Hello, Gene Schwimmer here. Welcome to today's vlog. I've been doing a lot of thinking in the last 24 hours. I'm sure many of you have, since the events that occurred in the Capitol, this invasion of the seat of our government. Lindsey Graham did a press conference earlier today, and I had been using the term thugs. I've been calling these people thugs. He called them, I think more accurately, domestic terrorists. So that's what I'm calling them. But what I want to talk about today is, I think, a deeper issue that nobody has really talked about relating to this. I think there's a failure to see the forest for the trees. I'm going to first give you a couple of trees here, and then I'm going to, well, you're probably puzzled by the title today. A poet explains this violence that we've been seeing, and, well, we had the events in the Capitol that happened the day before I'm recording this, which is the day before you're seeing it. But here's a headline: pipe bombs found in Republican Democratic headquarters in D.C. officials. So in addition to that violence that occurred, we have now pipe bombs being placed at the headquarters of both parties. And then we have another story of violence of a much lower degree than what I just described and what we saw the day before in the Capitol, but it's related. It's another tree that people are seeing and missing the whole forest, I think. But here's a headline: Mayor Wheeler punched in shoulder at Northwest Portland restaurant, police say. Mayor Wheeler is Ted Wheeler, the mayor of Portland, Oregon. He was one of the people at whom Lindsey Graham pointed fingers today. He pointed at a lot of people. Well, obviously Trump. He was very fair about Trump. That what he did was, it's a sad ending to what would have otherwise been remembered by people as a great presidency. The peace agreements in the Middle East, before the coronavirus, well, getting out the vaccine so quickly, but before that, the economic growth. I could go on, and that has all been marred. I would have said that Trump would be a shoo-in to run again in 2024 if he wanted to. Now, I'm not so sure whether he would or whether he should run again. But Lindsey Graham correctly pointed out that part of what is behind this, he also mentioned a biased press, but that's something else, but that Ted Wheeler, like other big city mayors and governors, these riots by Antifa and Black Lives Matter have been going on for months, plus various smaller attacks, and these mayors have been arresting them and then letting them go, if they arrested them at all. And as Graham pointed out, when one group sees other people committing these acts and not being held accountable for them, and even having, well, even Kamala Harris and other Democrats in the Senate, they had made excuses for this violence in the past. Yeah, I want to be careful here. I want to be very clear. I'm not talking about whataboutism, where one group does something, in this case Trump supporters, and then you turn around and say, yeah, well, what about these people? What about Antifa? What about Black Lives Matter? That's not what I'm doing. I'm giving you a bigger picture, or I'm about to, what this is all about, because I think what we're seeing is a breakdown of maybe we're heading into a dark ages, or a temporary interregnum, which you sometimes have in history, just a breakdown in order, a rise in anarchy. And, well, what I want to get to, I'm going to read you a poem. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to read you a poem, a very famous poem that I think really explains what happened. So, you know, sit back and listen to this poem, and then I'm going to give you a final comment. Turning and turning in the widening gyre, the falcon cannot hear the falconer. Things fall apart, the center cannot hold. Mere anarchy is loosed upon the world. The blood-dimmed tide is loosed, and everywhere the ceremony of innocence is drowned. The best lack all conviction, while the worst are full of passionate intensity. Surely some revelation is at hand. Surely the second coming is at hand. The second coming. Hardly are those words out when a vast image out of Spiritus Mundi troubles my sight. A waste of desert sand, a shape with lion body and the head of a man. A gaze blank and pitiless as the sun is moving its slow thighs, while all about it wind shadows of the indignant desert birds. The darkness drops again, but now I know that 20 centuries of stony sleep were vexed to nightmare by a rocking cradle. And what rough beast, its hour come round at last, slouches towards Bethlehem to be born. That poem that I just read you obviously is the famous poem by William Butler Yeats, The Second Coming. Yeats wrote his poem at the end of World War I, after all the death and destruction and chaos of the First World War, something that the world had never seen. A world war, literally a world war, and the deaths of millions of people. I don't have the figure handy. I believe that Europe lost a third of its young men in that war. That's what Yeats was writing about, and I think he very well encapsulates what could be happening today, or what I fear could be happening today. I think something that Yeats doesn't say in his poem, or people don't mention it in any criticism or critique or evaluation, description, the explanation of the poem that I've seen, but it's worth noting that the second coming, it's a reference, of course, to Jesus, who the Christians believe is a son of God. In other words, a spiritual being. The Sphinx, to which Yeats is, of course, referring to in the second stanza of that poem, that is an object, it's a pagan object and constructed by man. That's the deeper meaning that I am now getting out of the poem, and that we have gotten away from our spiritual halves, that we no longer look to God or feel ourselves guided by God, but more and more I see in the denigration of religion and of faith, an over-reliance in the works of man. And I worry increasingly about as time goes on, we create more sophisticated devices, more intelligent devices, more destructive devices, or it could be something that would seem more benign, like a Facebook or a Twitter, social media. I see great damage being done by social media. I guess what I'm getting at is I worry more and more about what we human beings are creating as I see these events unfold, this increasing violence and an increasing inhumanity and an increasing insensitivity and an increasing, I just worry if we are allowed, or if we allow ourselves to unleash our creative abilities, our technical creative abilities, to the maximum, but unguided by any higher power or sense of morality or, frankly, God. I worry about it, and I'm just going to leave it for that, I'll just leave it there for today. If you could, well, as I always say, I appreciate the time that you spent with me. If you could give me a thumbs up, I would appreciate that. If you liked this vlog, if you think somebody else would like it, then maybe you could share it. You could also put comments in the comment sections. You can put, questions, suggestions for future topics. You could subscribe. I love getting new subscribers. You could also listen to my music channel, my original music channel, which I have a link to in the description. And I guess what else is left is just say that I would love to see all of you again. And until I do see all of you again, bye.